Captain Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display with the kind of expression usually reserved for finding expired milk in the refrigerator. The massive fleet of crystalline ships surrounding her small exploration vessel Curiosity gleamed with an otherworldly beauty that would have been breathtaking under different circumstances. "So let me get this straight," she said, turning to her communications officer. "We accidentally jumped into the middle of their sacred coronation ceremony?" Lieutenant Rodriguez nodded grimly. "That's what their translator is saying, Captain. Apparently we materialized right where their new emperor was supposed to make his grand entrance." Chen rubbed her temples. 3 months into humanity's first interstellar expedition, and they'd already managed to crash the galaxy's most important political event. The Curiosity had been testing their experimental FTL drive when a cascade failure in the navigation computer sent them tumbling through space-time like a drunk tourist falling downstairs. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a being that looked like someone had crossed a praying mantis with a disco ball. Its multifaceted eyes reflected the bridge lights as it spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes having an argument. "Primitive bipeds," the translator rendered in clipped tones. "You have committed the highest sacrilege against the Zephyrian Eternal Empire. Prepare to face the consequences of your—" "Hold up there, Sparkles," Chen interrupted, standing from her captain's chair. "First off, we're not primitive. We've got Netflix and indoor plumbing. Second, this was an accident. Our navigation system had what you might call a cosmic hiccup." The alien's antennae twitched in what the crew's xenobiologist Dr. Kim whispered was probably indignation. "You dare speak to Emperor Zizix the Magnificent with such— Emperor Zip-a-dee-doo-dah?" Chen squinted at the screen. "Look, Zip, I get that you're upset, but we're reasonable people. What say we talk this through like adults, maybe over coffee? Do you drink coffee?" Behind her, Dr. Kim was frantically scribbling notes. "Captain," she whispered urgently, "their culture appears to be highly hierarchical with complex honor-based social structures. You might want to show more respect?" Chen finished. "Kim, I appreciate the anthropological insight, but right now we've got bigger fish to fry." She turned back to the screen. "So, Zip, what's it going to take to smooth this over? Fruit basket? Sincere apology? Gift card?" The Emperor's translator struggled with the concept of gift cards while his fleet of 1,000 ships powered up weapons that made Earth's most advanced military hardware look like slingshots. Energy readings spiked across the Curiosity's sensor array as exotic matter cannons and quantum disruptors hummed to life. "The penalty for interrupting the sacred ascension is immediate disintegration," the Emperor declared. "However, since you are clearly an inferior species incapable of understanding the magnitude of your transgression, we offer you the mercy of serving as our slaves for merely 1,000 years." Chen blinked slowly. "Okay, now I'm actually getting annoyed." She turned to her tactical officer. "Stevens, what's our weapons status?" "Well, Captain, we've got 2 photon torpedoes, some really angry words, and Lieutenant Park's homemade hot sauce that could probably melt through hull plating." "And what have they got?" "According to sensors, enough firepower to glass a continent and the ego to match." Chen nodded thoughtfully. "Kim, you said they value honor and hierarchy, right? What happens when someone challenges their authority?" Dr. Kim's eyes widened. "Captain, you're not seriously considering—" "Zip!" Chen called out, cutting off the Emperor mid-threat. "I invoke the right of— She gestured frantically at Kim. "Zephyrian combat supremacy," Kim whispered desperately. "Right of Zephyrian combat supremacy," Chen declared with more confidence than she felt. "Single combat between representatives. Winner takes all." The Emperor's antennae froze mid-twitch. Around him, his advisors began chattering in their wind chime, language so rapidly the translator gave up trying to keep pace. "You invoke the ancient right?" The Emperor's voice carried a note of uncertainty. "But you are merely primitive." "There you go with primitive again," Chen said. "Look, we invented jazz music, deep dish pizza, and the concept of measured responses to minor traffic incidents. If that's not civilization, I don't know what is." She leaned forward. "Here's the deal, Zip. Your champion versus ours. Fair. Fight." If we win, we walk away with a formal apology and maybe some of those neat crystal ships for the inconvenience. If you win, we'll serve as your personal comedians for 50 years instead of slaves for 1,000. Because frankly, your material needs work. The Emperor conferred with his advisors while Chen turned to her crew. Stevens, how's your hand-to-hand combat? Rusty, but I once wrestled my cousin Dale for the last piece of Thanksgiving pie. That'll have to do. 20 minutes later, Stevens found himself in the Emperor's ceremonial combat chamber, facing what appeared to be a robot made of angry metal spaghetti. The Zephyrian champion stood 12 feet tall and had more arms than a Swiss Army knife had. Tools. The fight lasted exactly 37 seconds. It turns out that while the Zephyrians had evolved as a peaceful species that settled disputes through elaborate ritual combat, humans had evolved on a planet where everything from the weather to the wildlife was actively trying to kill them. Stevens didn't just defeat the champion. He did it while making it look like a particularly violent interpretive dance. As the Curiosity prepared to depart with their new Zephyrian escort ships, turns out the inconvenience fee was legally binding. Emperor Zizixith appeared on screen one final time. "Captain Chen," he said, his translator rendering what might have been respect in his tone. Perhaps we underestimated your species." Chen grinned. "Zip, you have no idea. Wait until you meet our lawyers." The Emperor's antennae drooped as the implication sank in, and the Curiosity jumped to FTL, leaving behind the first human diplomatic mission that ended with humanity accidentally conquering their way into galactic politics. In her captain's log that night, Chen wrote, "Note to Earth Command, bring bigger ships next time, and maybe some legal disclaimers."